Thank you, Sammy, and thank you everybody for coming today. We've all chosen to be here at this time, at this place, and we're going to make the most of it. We've got an outstanding lineup of speakers today, and we're really focused on Syria and the people of Syria and what's going on and what we can do to help the people of Syria. The title of today's webinar is Syria Today: Stories of Return, Resistance, and Renewal. A brief introduction for Nonviolence International is that we're a backbone organization for the global nonviolent movement, and we provide fiscal sponsorship, training, and education as we spread knowledge and transformative stories of dynamic emerging nonviolent movements that give us hope in difficult times. In short, we are reshaping what we view as possible, and we're going to hear some great stories today from Syria. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker today, who is Noura Salam. She has very graciously stepped in at the last minute because our first speaker today, Rafif Shouajati, is unable to join us because she has just had a death in the family and is, can't join us. And Noura has graciously stepped in quickly, and we're just all sending our best wishes to Rafif and her family. So with that, Noura, the floor is yours.
Hey, good day, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I'm currently in Syria, as you all know. So I would like to say I'm sorry for not opening my camera all the time because it is really bad in Syria. It's still bad in Syria. So I will be turning off the camera so you can hear me clearly. Good day, and thank you for having me again. Okay, I will be talking generally or giving an overview of the situation in Syria. The situation actually remains extremely challenging these days. Access to basic services, as you can see, the electricity, internet, healthcare, and education is still limited. Daily life continues to be shaped by economic pressure, insecurity, and a lack of support. But despite these harsh conditions, civil society remains active as it was before the fall of al-Assad regime. Local initiatives, many of them led by youth and women, are stepping in to meet urgent needs, provide informal education, offer psychological support, and promote peaceful movement. The feminist movement, the Syrian political feminist movement, Dima, my colleague, or she's a member of the movement, she would be talking more about it. But I would say that the women are organizing safe spaces. They are leading local campaigns against gender-based violence and advocating for inclusion in community decision making in political life. These efforts are not only helping women but strengthening community as a whole. In this environment, nonviolence is not a luxury, as you all see. It is essential. Violence has dominated our lives for too long, for like more than 40 years. Through nonviolent action, communities are finding new ways to resolve conflict, build trust, and building trust is an issue now. We have to do that because the community need to build trust among each other because we were divided by the regime in several areas, the regime and other uh, uh, um, um, military factions. Okay. I would be talking about Sullam. Sullam is a nonviolent network formed by activists in all over Syria in different governorates. We were working for over a year online, and we made our first meeting. We met personally for the first time last month. We shared our opinions and our ideas, and we started executing our ideas on the ground. We are now forming campaigns of nonviolent activities. We are launching training campaigns also in different areas in Syria. Uh, we are now thinking about making a camp, a nonviolent camp in Syria also, because we want to meet with other Syrians who share the same ideas, so we can encourage people to use nonviolent activities and to participate in civil movement through nonviolence. Uh, Also, I would like to um, say that even a small donation for Sulla can help us reach more communities and train more young people and sustain hope where it's needed the most and now. The most now and in Syria. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nora, for that brief overview. And I think there'll be a lot of questions about Sulam and the nonviolent network that you're helping to lead and what more specifically you're hoping to do. And um, I think we'll now turn our attention to our next speaker. And our next speaker is um, who's next on our list? Our next speaker is Dima and Dima Moussa, and she is speaking from Damascus. And she's going to give us an overview of the political situation, among other things. And we're very grateful for Dima uh, joining us. She also is going to have a challenge with her bandwidth, and so maybe keeping her camera off so that we can hear her. So, Dima, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michael, and I hope everybody can hear me. As Noura said, and as you said, Michael, it's quite a challenge to come in through from Damascus. We were discussing this previously before we started this, that Zoom is difficult because it's one of the things affected probably by sanctions, which remain one of the most challenging obstacles in the way of moving forward on a lot of levels. Again, my name is Dima Moussa, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the political situation here. There are two different sides to look at the political situation. Maybe I can start with the positive, and not that the negative is super negative, but it's something where we can build on the positive to be able to achieve it. One of the most important things, I think, even for me on a personal level, as I was a member of the political opposition since the beginning of the revolution in 2011, and we were forced to do our political work from abroad. We didn't have the ability to come back to our country, but today I can come through to you from Syria. So this is one huge step where we can now move our work to the ground. We're closer to the people. One of the most important things is that more or less Syria is now connected. There are still, of course, some issues, and I believe probably our friend Bassam is going to talk about some of the remaining issues with the restoring complete unity of Syria. But people today have access to all parts of Syria, and this is very important for the political work. In terms of the political space, you know, and you can take my words as a personal opinion or from my personal experience, and I try to not compare things to how things were before the collapse of the regime, but we sort of have to, because that's the threshold with which we worked for over 14 years. Today, people, they have the ability to sit in public, to discuss political issues in public. There are almost events on daily basis. Sometimes there are so many that we can't even make it to, like, for example, today, because I'm participating in this, I had to, you know, to sort of not attend something else that I wanted to attend. So the political space in that sense is very open. Most of the events are publicly announced, and they're held in public places where people talk about very important issues, even criticizing the current transitional government. And until now, it doesn't seem like there are any pressures on these kinds of activities, which I think it's a good step to establish, on which to build for future political work. Even there are some political parties and a political alliance that was launched recently here in Damascus. And to me, this is a very healthy indication, first, of the ability to do more political work, and second, of people's interest. Most of these events, I always like to point out, are usually crowded because people have this thirst to just sit together and talk politics after not just 14 years, but 54 years of not being able to participate in public life, especially in the political space, unless they were affiliated with the Ba'ath Party or one of the approved political parties by the regime. And one thing that I have noticed is that there is a large number of women and young people at these events. A lot of the comments that are being made indicate a high level of political maturity and interest in public affairs. So to me, this is actually has been a very positive thing. On the level of, as Noura said, I'm one of the founding members of the Syrian Women's Political Movement. We also probably were the first political body that had a public press conference in Damascus after the collapse of the regime, exactly a month after, on January 8th, and we held it in a public place. There were over 300 people in attendance, and we talked about feminist issues and political issues. And we are now working on moving a lot of our work into Syria. If I want to turn to what the political space is like at the government level and at the decision-making level, unfortunately, this is where things are a little bit unclear and possibly a little bit bleak, because every step of the way, everything that has taken place until now, including the dialogue, the National Dialogue Conference, the different committees that were formed, for example, the committee that was preparing for the national dialogue and the committee that was formed to draft the constitutional declaration, and even the government, there seems to be no inclusion of different political forces. There has been inclusion or attempts to include various groups, including religious and sectarian and tribal groups, but there still seems to be now at this point, it seems to be an intentional exclusion of political forces. And it's not clear where where things are going in this regard, but there are some voices that are starting to rise in terms of that it is very important. Inclusion is not just inclusion of different people of different religious and sectarian and tribal or societal backgrounds, but also the real inclusion should be at the political level. There was in the Constitutional Declaration an article that talked about there will be a new political party law. So this is also, people are kind of waiting to see what that's going to be like, if there are going to be any requirements that blatantly or indirectly show that there's going to be a certain color of political life in Syria. So this is, like I said, this is not negative, but this is sort of something that we consider adverse, because at the root of the problems that led to the revolution in 2011 was accumulations resulting from the fact that there was no political pluralism in Syria. I don't want to take too much time, but I do want to talk a little bit also about women's participation. From my observation, it also seems that women groups, organizations, and political bodies that had worked a lot on women issues over the last few years were better prepared to move their work into the country. And that mainly was, if I want to sort of base that on the experience we had in the Syrian women's political movement, it's because what brought us together as feminist and women groups previously made us work extra hard at reaching out to different women and different communities inside Syria in the different areas of influence before the regime collapsed, which made it much easier for us to have networks on the ground as we moved into the country. And I have noticed that a lot of the discussions that are going on these days, especially, there's a lot of interest in transitional justice and civil peace. And a lot of these groups have been actually led by women, whether we're talking about the discussions or even the participants. So I do feel that actually the women participation in all aspects of life has been more on the positive side, and there's definitely something to build on there. It's a long way ahead, we realize this. And again, the economic situation remains the biggest challenge for all aspects of life in Syria, which again, I can't stress it enough. The calls for lifting the sanctions is probably one of the priorities, and should be the priority on top of everybody's list, not just Syrians, but those who consider themselves friends of the people of Syria. I'm going to stop here because I'll probably have more chance to talk when there are questions.
Dima, thank you so much. And I think everybody can applaud our first two speakers from Syria who are speaking to us with difficult electricity and internet challenges, and they're just so articulate and so wonderful. And I wish both of you could be president of Syria right away. Next, we have Bassam Ishak, who's a longtime partner of Nonviolence International. And I had the privilege of returning to Syria with Bassam Ishak in early mid-March for his first time returning in more than 13 and a half years. And Bassam is going to talk about his experience returning and also give you some perspectives that he might have that can add to the diversity of voices that we have here today. So Bassam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michael, for inviting me to be on this panel. I want to speak just a little bit, give a background about myself so people could appreciate my experience going back after 13 years. So I was born, raised in Damascus, and fast forward, I was living with my family, my wife and children in Damascus, and I was a volunteer with the Syrian Human Rights Organization in Damascus from 2004 till the time of the breakout of the revolution. And I was listed like many other many other activists on a travel ban list. For many years, I could not travel outside of Syria. So after the revolution, I started to steer away from the human right and became involved in the political side of the opposition work in Syria, which meant that I was listed again on the Secret Service list and could not really go back to Syria. So for 13 and a half years, I had not been into Damascus till my friend Michael and I showed up in mid-March at the borders. And it was such an experience and joy to be able to just pass through safely without any questions. I mean, it was just a joy to feel freedom in Syria. So it was an interesting. Some people asked me, "Did you cry?" I said, "No, I didn't have time to cry. I was elated actually that I could enter and experience freedom in my home country for the first time." You know, so that was a great experience. When in Damascus, I mean, I could see how my city is really run down, you know, because of years of neglect, because of the war and the situation. But the faces of the people looked quite different to me. You know, they seemed more relaxed, more you know, smiles you know, on faces. When you talk to people, what really captured me, especially people that I knew before, that they were speaking like a different person that I know. They had gained their voice and they were expressing themselves without fear. So you could really see the person finally, what they think, what their personality is like. And I think this was another reason for a great joy for me. Also to be able to hear for the first time many of these people political views, which they had left for themselves for many, many years. And I think this is going to play a big role, this phenomena of people gaining their voice, you know, and enjoying their freedom. It's going to eventually change the society and play a role. And I think it will be very hard for anybody in the future, any ruler, to really oppress the Syrian people after this experience. I don't know how long it will last. I hope it lasts forever, actually, this sense of freedom. I mean, there was absence of pictures of the late president or any picture of any president or leader. The only political signs that some people would have, like in their stores or home, is the new old Syrian flag, which was the flag of independence. Sometimes that somebody will have a sign that says Syria won, and that would be about it. And I think for me, I could feel for the first time a sense of patriotism that people have in their own country, which really was absent for and couldn't have happened without the fall of the Assad regime. So this was really very touchy situation. Now, as much as I was happy to experience those things, of course, there was also sad scenes. You know, there was more poverty on the street, more taxi cars, you know, and I would ride those taxi cars and they will be like lawyers, engineers who, you know, have no jobs and have to drive a taxi to survive, you know. And many of these people will tell me stories about their lives, their aspirations, especially when they know that I'm coming from the US. So sometimes some people would recognize me, which was surprising because early on in the revolution, I was on TV quite a bit. So it was really touching to be walking down the street and somebody calls your name that you don't know and ask for a cup of coffee and conversation. And so that was actually another great experience, but that shows the interest of the people. They're interested to know. Everybody asks you almost the same question. Where do you think things are going? How are you optimistic about the future? So this was another, I think, a positive sign for me about what is happening in the society. And as Dima mentioned, I was impressed how more young people are involved, and also the women. Me and Michael witnessed, some of the activities of these women who are organizing themselves, and engaging with issues. And I just, I'm waiting to see what would the future be like for these young people. I think it will be hard for anybody to oppress the Syrian people. Again, try to oppress them. But the country, of course, faces many challenges in many areas. And it will take, I think, hours to address all of it. But as I said before, obviously the economic situation, the infrastructure situation, the internet, the electricity, the water, the rising prices, all these are things that Syria needs to overcome. So I think empowering Syrians, and I think this is why after my visit, I became a big supporter of lifting the economic sanctions, especially on the Syrian people, those sanctions that affect the daily lives of the Syrian people. Because as we do, we will be empowering them to really speak up more and express more. And without this, we cannot come to a better Syria, regardless of who is ruling now and how the geopolitics competition going on and how maybe political sanctions are being used in this geopolitic competition. I think it serves everybody to lift the sanctions and not just the Syrian people, because we need to talk and communicate with the Syrian people and empower them so that they affect the future. And I think I am optimistic, although there were sad things that were happening. And Michael was there, the events in the coastal area where there were, bloody events that caused casualties among civilians, and that really disappointed all Syrian peoples, regardless of their backgrounds, education. Nobody wants to see this, and nobody wants this to continue. And they want a resolution as soon as possible for any chaos, like this. So this is an important issue. Obviously, the new regime, is an interim situation and lacks the tools to provide security across this vast now geography that they have gained after the collapse of the Assad regime. And you have groups, especially with weapons, who are with different ideas. And I think we are going through a period where we are paying for, as Syrians, for not agreeing on a vision for the Syria we want after Assad collapse. And these different people with different visions who have weapons, and many are non-Syrians actually, are creating a problem. So there is a common view among all Syrians that they want the non-Syrian armed rebels to be out of Syria. They want Syrian issue to be handled by Syrian people. And so this, again, is a political issue, is a top political issue that needs to be dealt with the international community. I mean, this is what comes to mind. I mean, there were also many stories I heard about people who are abusing this freedom that we have now, trying to take over property of others. And so there is a need for a rule of law as soon as possible to happen, especially when it comes to communities where you have endangered groups, small minorities who would empty a village and never come back to it, And so there is a serious need for a fast rule of law in Syria. I mean, these are the main points. I will stop here, and I'm open to any questions that you may have about the situation in Syria. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Bassam. And indeed, it was a great joy, an honor for me to return to Syria with you. It was my first time to Syria. I'll talk for just a couple of minutes here, and then we'll open up for question and answers. I just wanted to give people here on the call an idea of what it was like for a first-time person. I'd never been to Syria before. I don't speak Arabic, so I'm just like a kind of a stupid tourist coming in. But luckily, I had a great tour guide with Bassam Ishak, and going to Damascus, where I spent a week. I guess my initial reactions were somewhat mixed. On one hand, as Bassam said, the city is really run down. The traffic is terrible. People were worried as before I went, oh, this is dangerous. You're going into a dangerous environment. And I want to report to all of you that I did not really feel a sense of danger in Syria, given the situation. Even though there's a bit of a power vacuum in Damascus, I did not feel in danger as a tourist, um, except for one thing. I felt really scared about the traffic. And I've been around the world to Cairo and to Bangkok and to some terrible places with terrible traffic. And Syria's traffic, Damascus, oh my God, it was a nightmare and it was dangerous. So if you go to as a tourist, please be careful about the traffic. Unfortunately, the city really is run down. As they said, very little electricity, lots of poverty, lots of beggars in the streets. And it was just hard to see years of misrule, the sanctions, civil war. It's sad to see. Also, on the downside, I would say the young people I met, most of them want to leave. They want to go to Europe. They want to go to North America. Qatar. They want to get out. Unfortunately, and so that was kind of sad to see. And there's a lot of charm in Damascus, but it's a little bit hidden at the moment. So you can find beautiful hotels and beautiful spaces that are just absolutely exquisite. And it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the Damascus. It's one of the oldest continuously lived cities in the world, going back almost 10,000 years. So it has remarkable history. But if you're going to go to the museums are really hurting, but they need our revenue. So please go to Syria and go to these museums that also need upholding. I put on recently a marvelous, two photographs, which I should share here, maybe later in the call, of a statue in Syria, in Damascus. And so the one photo was of this Greek statue that had been smashed by ISIS a few years ago in Palmyra. But next to the statue, I put a photograph of a Greek archaeological site nearby in Israel, where I had just visited 2 weeks before, where vandals there, religious vandals, had vandalized with spray paint this Greek archaeological site. And because they didn't want this non-Jewish heritage to be displayed in Israel. So you have religious extremists in Syria and in Israel who are trying to rewrite history and destroy history for current political reasons. And unfortunately, Syria has a variety of groups out there. Some of them have very retrograde kind of views on the world. I met with a lot of minorities there, minorities. I know Syrians don't even like to use this word, but many groups, many different kinds of groups, and everybody is mixed, hopeful, and also a little bit scared about the current Islamic government in Damascus. I would just finish by saying that I did get outside of Damascus for one day. I went to Sidnaya, which is a predominantly Christian town that was not directly impacted by the civil war. It was lovely to visit. There was a lot of charm there. And so I'd encourage people to travel around Syria. There are certain places that are completely destroyed by barrel bombs and are just rubble. And then there are other places that are untouched. But there's a lot of trauma and wounds in society, and it's going to take a long time to heal. And even if all the sanctions are lifted tomorrow, and even if this current regime decides, oh, yes, we'll have elections and they have a perfect democratic government, whatever that might mean, the amount of rebuilding and healing that has to go on is going to take many, 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 many years. And so my main word for everybody is go to Syria now. It's remarkable. And let's end these sanctions immediately. With that, I'm going to stop speaking and I'm going to open up for question and answer. We would please raise your hand by clicking the reaction button in the bar if you can. I will invite you to unmute. If you can't come off mute, you can type your question in the chat. We'll try to get to it. We value all voices, and we in particular would welcome any voices of young people who are thinking that they might want to speak up, because we always want to try to encourage young people to speak. I see two marvelous people already in queue. Wind Kaufman, you are up. We are going to unmute you, and I think unmute. Unmute. How do we unmute Wind? Ask to unmute. Sammy or Bianca, can you help us unmute Wind?
She should be able to do it herself,
Okay, Wind, can you do it?
because I just did.
Good. Wind, we'll come back to you in a minute. Lacey, great to see you. Thank you for joining us. Please speak up.
Hello, and thanks so much for organizing this panel. I just wanted to mention something that I think is pretty important about where Syria is right now, that I think that we as progressives and peace activists and people on the left need to understand about Syria right now. And that is, I know this has been touched upon a little bit in comments by others, but the difference between North and East Syria and the Syria in Damascus. Of course, North and East Syria is like the democratic US allied part of Syria. And that's the part that, they're famous for the Syrian Kurdish women who battled ISIS and, who basically are based out of the Kurdish liberation movement and the women's liberation movement. And they have built a really inclusive, diverse democracy there. And, of course, no revolution is perfect and no movement is perfect, but like they are really genuinely trying to build a really inclusive democracy there. And that's what I saw last year when I went to northeast Syria. I am just, I'm just kind of asking and also kind of mentioning that, when we think of, this integration that's happening between northeast Syria and Damascus, I think we all need to be aware that, the new government, the interim government in Damascus, yes, it's, they are saying a lot of the right things, and a lot of people feel that they are better than Bashar al-Assad. But we need to kind of keep our eyes open to see how actually committed they are to human rights, how actually committed they are. They have already been, kind of indicating that they want an education system based on teaching Sharia law, that, and that they have also written a draft constitution based loosely on Sharia law, and that they are really, not intending to build an inclusive government. I know we've seen also the violations and the killings of people who are Alawite on the coast of Syria. And these are all like not great signs. And, one of the things that I think that we should be looking at and paying attention to is how really inclusive the new government is. And also just how it will integrate with Northeast Syria. Northeast Syria is currently autonomous. They are more stable, and they have actually even a larger military than the folks who are now running Damascus. And I think that, they are more kind of progressive and left-leaning. So I think we should be aware of this, and that we should, really be rooting for Northeast Syria to be kind of maintaining autonomy, and just in their negotiations with Damascus on power sharing, that they not lose all of the gains that they've gotten on women's rights, on plurality, on equality under the law, and on secularism, on the right for freedom of religion. So anyway, I think we should be watching that, and I'm wondering
This is wonderful.
how you all feel about that.
Beautiful. Well, this is fantastic. Thank you, Lacey, for bringing this to the table. It's absolutely has to be talked about. Who wants to answer this first?
I mean, I'm willing to go, but if Dina or anyone wants to interject, that's fine.
Well, Bassam, why don't you start, and then we'll also ask Dima
Yes,
and
go ahead, Bassam.
Sure. So I think Lacey, what you are sharing goes back to a comment I said that I wanted from the beginning. When I joined the opposition, I was also asking, what's the vision? Can we develop a common vision? And there was nobody was willing to engage in developing a common vision, because everybody had their own vision and wanted their vision to be implemented. And now we have this problem today, where we have in Damascus the current rulers with their vision, which is based in religion, and we have in Northeast Syria others who would the autonomous region with a different vision that they implemented on the ground. Now, on the other hand, in Damascus, the religious vision is not really fully implemented yet. And we're seeing signs of the conflict that can happen within the community, within the one community that adhere to the religion, on really how to fine-tune the vision. So there is a struggle there on the vision that is going of Syria of the future. And it's not going to be easily resolved, but at least I am so encouraged that they were able to sign a military agreement to work together Because if we come into a situation where we agree that security is priority, and that we will resolve our political issues and what is the vision for New Syria peacefully. We commit to that. And I think this is the most we can get at this time. And we got that. We got the military side between Northeast Syria and between Damascus. Now, it's the application is not that simple. There are committees that are discussing from both sides how that they can merge. Like, how do you merge Northeast Syria co-presidency system where men, women lead every institution, co-jointly with institutions according to Sharia and according to the Islamic religious vision. This is going to be challenging, but in a way, it's fascinating that this is happening in Syria, out of all places, that this could happen in Syria, because once this is resolved, it will be a model for the whole Arab world and Muslim world. And I'm honored, people like me, our generation, that we are part of this. We're going to be part of history. I know things can go wrong. It's not going to be easy, but it's worth it. And we cannot avoid it. But I agree with what Lacey said, that what happened in Northeast Syria is important. It's been implemented on the ground. It had its own mistakes, yes, but everything to be perfected, it has to really overcome the mistakes. And we cannot just wipe it out and say, we're going to go with only one vision, whether it's the Northeast vision or what I call it, the Umayyad vision. And I say this with all respect, because there are those in my country who really believe that the best model for Syria was the historical Umayyad model. Because of that, I've been studying this model a lot recently, saying where it was successful, where it went wrong, and why. And I think we need to have this conversation in Syria among Syrian people and come into a vision for Syria of the future.
Thank you, Bassam. Dima, did you want to speak up about this at all?
Yes.
Please.
Yeah. If I can make just a few comments, please. First of all, thank you, Lacey, for your intervention. I couldn't tell, I didn't hear really a question, so I'm just going to comment on a few things. And I think Bassam already commented on some of these things that when we look at Syria, we need, I know everybody, they look for something that, they see what they're looking for. So like Bassam said, every experience in the there were 4 different areas of influence in Syria, and none of them were perfect. Of course, there were mistakes to varying degrees in each place. And today, what's really important is, instead of saying that this is what Syria should be like, and these are the people whose vision should be the one adopted, I think it's time for Syrians to decide that. We do need to decide that. There were very good first steps that were taken in terms of the agreement between Damascus and the Northeast, but there's still a lot of work ahead. And this is the result of years of war, of years of international intervention to different agendas. We can't say that there is no agenda in the Northeast or the Northwest or whoever was backing up the regime. So today, I think Syrian people need to take this into their own hands. And I do want to comment about a few things, misconceptions that keep on circulating, and we try to change. Yes, there were attempts, and I think there was talk about changing the curriculum. The curriculum hasn't changed. What has changed in it so far is they've taken everything that's relating to the Ba'ath Party and the regime, and they halted, they said there will be a review of curriculum during the summer after the end of the school year. So actually nothing has changed. As for the Constitutional Declaration, and please allow me to comment on this as a lawyer and somebody who worked on the Constitution, a simple review of Syria's constitution since 1920 until now will show that this constitutional declaration does not actually have an influence of the Sharia law or Sharia jurisprudence in it. This is exactly what has been in previous constitutions in Syria. So in that sense, no, there in the daily life there hasn't been actually that effect in terms of the laws. Yes, there are some incidents where some people are trying to impose their own beliefs, but when people stand up to them, they back down, and we do need to do our work to make sure when we get to the point of writing the permanent constitution that we do our work as Syrians to sit together and make sure we reach a consensus for a constitution that represents all. And we do need to remember that a huge section of Syrians are religious, are Muslims, they're religious, even the Christians and others are religious. So we do need to respect also their opinions, and we need to reach that point where everybody feels represented. Thank you.
Nora, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, Dima and Bassam talked about it.
Great. Wind, you're up next, and then Susan.
Thank you. Sorry about earlier. I had tech issues. My question is, how do you see the current government's attitude and relationship with the US and Israel? And what about their support or lack thereof for Palestine?
Nora, do you want to start off? Nora, would you like to start us?
Okay, yeah, actually, politically wise, I think Dima is knows more. So if she's ready, go ahead.
I mean, I can, okay. My internet is really not helping me here. I think the current government, in terms of the relationship with the international community at large, is treading very carefully right now, since one of the main concerns is the lifting of sanctions. In terms of what Israel and reactions to the incursions and taking some land in southern Syria, of course, the official position is to be against that. But today, they don't, we don't have the capability of launching wars against anybody. But we do have, we can try to use our diplomatic tools. I don't think until now we've seen what some people are saying or are observing or thinking that we're going towards normalization with the Zionist entity, because this is still one of the most sensitive issues in Syria. The greatest majority of Syrians, of course, are against the Israel because it occupies, even before this incursion, it occupies land, even by international resolutions that the US has voted on in the Security Council. So, this is still a sensitive topic. So I don't have, any more to say about that. I know there's been, in terms of the relationship with the US, there's been a lot of contact, and just recently we had a delegation of Syrian-American a Syrian-American delegation here. So it seems like they're trying to intensify these relationships to ensure getting some of the sanctions at least suspended. I don't know if I can comment more than that because there isn't really more information that I have on it. And I don't know, maybe Bassam also, since he's with SDC, they might have also a good read on that.
Yes. No, I wasn't. I didn't hear the last part of the question, actually, when it came to about Palestine. What was said in the question?
Okay, it's actually in the chat, but basically just what do you see as their support or lack thereof for Palestine?
Well, recently the Palestinian president visited the interim president of Syria. I think that shows support for the Palestinian people. I think Syria, typically the Syrian people are sympathetic to uh, the Palestinian people. We have to know that. I mean, that doesn't mean that there can't be in the future, dialogue between through mediators, perhaps like the U.S. and others, to bring eventually a peace treaty that is seen as just by the Syrian people. Because I don't think any leader of Syria could overcome the Syrian people on this issue. So there is a room to work on it, but at the time, this is the situation. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm sitting in Washington, D.C., and I've been told, although I can't really, I can't tell you, I don't have evidence, exact evidence to this, but I'm told that the Israeli lobby here is very strongly in support of keeping sanctions on Syria and keeping Syria divided and weak. And one of the things that needs to happen going forward, I think peace between Israel and Syria is really quite easy. Frankly, Israel has to get out of Syria and remove itself from these lands that it's occupying. And I think Syria would be willing to come to some sort of peace arrangement when Israel stops occupying the country and stops bombing it. When I was there, they bombed it twice, and they continue to bomb it every few weeks. So it's very unfortunate. Israel's not the only bad outside actor. We have other geopolitical actors. Turkey is very involved, big supporter of the current government, as well as Qatar. But Turkey occupies areas of northern Syria. We have the U.S. troops in Syria. And we really, what we're hearing from Syrians is they want all these foreign troops and these geopolitical actors to stop interfering in the country so that the Syrians can themselves resolve their differences and build a strong united future. Next up, Susan, you still with us, or did we lose you, Susan?
Hi, I'm still here. First of all, I would like to thank Nonviolence International for hosting what is an amazing evidence-based. For example, Michael, you yourself were on the ground. And importantly, we have the voices of Dima and Bassam and others from Syria reporting on what is happening on the ground. That this is, in a way, a very unique, refreshing, and much needed webinar, because I, for one, and I'm a Muslim, and I have friends who have been part of the Syrian nonviolent revolution since 2010. I am so tired of hearing for the past 14 years or so all of these Islamic tropes about the revolution being Islamic fundamentalist and terrorist. And I remember going to a very large and very left wing conference in New York City, and basically hearing one of the speakers say, listen, it's either Bashar al-Assad or the terrorists, completely erasing, negating, ignoring the Syrian population writ large, which just wants peace and freedom and basic human rights and food on the table like all other people on the world. However, because most of them, not the majority, but because most of them are Muslims, they are labeled with this trope of being terrorists. So thank you. Thank you very much for setting the record straight. And to what Dima said, I do see the situation in Syria as something of a Rorschach Inkblot test, where people just can superimpose whatever they want to see onto the situation and walk away with this, affirmation of what they thought, some sort of like navel gazing, if you will. But the fact of the matter is that we need to check our Islamophobia. There's a lot of Islamophobia going on, and the Muslim people want peace. They want all the foreign players out, and that's really what we need to focus on. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Dima, you want to go first and respond?
No, I think I agree with what Susan said. I mean, she got it. So there is definitely a lot of Islamophobia going on, and this sort of imposing preconceived notions. And this is the other thing, because I want to go back to the Constitution. This is like a great example is a constitutional declaration, as I've spoken in many events about it. And there's always somebody who's reading it because they look at the background of those who are in the government now, and they read the constitutional declaration through it without reading the entire context. We need to read the entire context of, the context of Syria is bigger than one group, and the Syrian people, they are very determined. Something like that Bassam said, that the Syrian people are determined to determine their own destination, their own fate. And, it's going to be a tough battle for anybody who tries to impose something that is not acceptable for the Syrian people.
Nora, did you have a comment on this that you wanted to talk about?
Yes, I was going to say that.
Unfortunately, Nora's connection got dropped.
Right.
Uh,
Bad internet.
yes, her internet got dropped. Bassam, did you have any comments on this topic?
Well, I mean, I agree with Susan and share with her the frustration. Although I'm not a Muslim, it was frustrating for me as a Syrian to say or to describe the situation as either Assad or the Islamists. I mean, it was not like that the way I was experiencing it inside Syria as a director of the Syrian Human Rights Organization. It was all the Syrian people who are suffering from the oppression of the Syrian regime, who were yearning for freedom, it wasn't like extremist versus Assad. So in that sense, I think apparently those who supported Assad, they used that argument to silence us, who wanted to see democracy and freedom in Syria. And it's still challenging. I'm not saying we have overcome this, no. But what I'm saying, we need to do it ourselves in Syria through genuine dialogue between all Syrians without exclusion of anybody. So we can come up with a Syria that really fulfill our aspirations. I mean, 600,000 Syrians died. It's a big price. The infrastructure of the country destroyed. The country destroyed. In many ways, we have paid a heavy price, and we want to see the outcome that really honors these sacrifices.
Thank you, Bassam. Thank you, Dima. Thank you, Nora. We're going to bring our webinar to a close. I just want to close with a few things. One is that based on my experience, this is a great time to go to Syria. Just go to Syria and visit, and they'll be warmly welcomed there. And they need our tourist dollars. Second, contact your government wherever you might be in the world, and really have your governments end any of the sanctions towards the Syria people right now. They have to stop. Even if you're very concerned about this less than perfect government, let's say in Damascus, you're concerned about them and you're concerned about leverage. Believe me, even if all the sanctions are lifted, they are still an enormous amount of leverage that many people in the world and the Syrian people have over this current government in Damascus. And so there is no excuse for saying, oh, we need to maintain leverage over this current regime. The sanctions need to come off right now. And then I'll just put a little pitch in for Salam. Please support them if you can. And please also, at Nonviolence International, we are among nonprofits here in the United States that may be under significant scrutiny by the Trump administration and our current government. We have a lot of challenges from our current government, and we need all the support we can get. And we're really looking for monthly donors to support Nonviolence International as we continue to engage with Syria, with Palestine, and with many other areas of the world to promote nonviolent solutions. So with that, I'll just finish by saying thank you all for coming, and we'll see you soon. I would ask everybody if you would unmute on the count of 3, and we'll all say goodbye together, and we'll count down. 3, 2, 1, unmute. Goodbye.
Bye.
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 Salama.
Salam.
Salam.
Thanks,
Salam.
everyone.
Salam.
Salam.